أوشك اليأس أن يغشى أمانينا.
Welcome back. We are discussing moon sighting this evening. In a short while, we'll open up the lines. Not right now, but in a short while, inshallah. There's just still one or two issues that we want to get our guests to elaborate on. In studio here in Johannesburg, we have Maulana Ibrahim Bam. He's the coordinator of the Uqsa Hilal Committee. And in studio in Cape Town, we have Maulana Taha Karans, senior alim, as well as a member of the Darul Ifta of the Muslim Judicial Council. In the last segment of the program, Maulana Taha had explained to us the Shari'i importance of moon sighting, as well as some of the requirements, and how fortunate we are as the Muslim community in South Africa that, alhamdulillah, for generations we have been very proactive in this regard, and we have set benchmarks that have been even applauded by many Muslim countries in even the Arab world. And Maulana Bam was explaining to us just before the break what happened at the end of Ramadan, the entire process that led to the Uqsa Hilal Committee announcing that, contrary to widespread expectations, the moon was sighted, and that the shahadat was taken, and it was announced that the next day would be Eid al-Fitr. Mu'ataha, that we know that in recent days there have been some concerns that have come to the fore. Others would say some allegations. One of the issues that have been raised is this issue of different countries trying to unite under Saudi, or all the SADC countries coming under one umbrella in terms of moon sighting. And there are two different issues here. The one issue is this: there are those who say that we now live in a global village. Why don't we come under a broader umbrella? Why don't we follow Makkah al-Mukarramah or the Haramain, for example, with regards moon sighting, and everybody globally then celebrates Eid on the same day? And then there are those who are saying that no, this moon sighting was perhaps manufactured, or it was stretched just so that it could be in conformance with Saudi by those whose ideology may be perhaps more in sync with those parts of the world. What is your response in that regard, Maulana?
I think, first of all, the call is not devoid of merit. The call is not devoid of merit on account of the fact that wherever unity can be produced, wherever we can have that particular unity, it is always going to be advantageous. It's always going to stretch to the advantage of the ummah to have it. However, that is not such an absolute that it overrides all other factors. It has become probably symptomatic of moon sighting in certain countries that moons get to be seen that are absolutely, astronomically speaking, impossible to have seen. Now, I have made some reference to the positions of the ulama on this particular issue, where a number of scholars have taken the opinion that once astronomical criteria rule out that possibility of sighting, then it should be rejected. I think that going forward, to create that particular unity, it would be necessary to have a foundation on which everyone can unite. If moons are going to be subject, to political influence, or even, for that matter, just the rumor of political influence, if moons are going to be subject to considerations of a different nature, if moons are going to be the type of moons that Sheikh Hamza Yusuf has referred to as the Caesarean births of the moon, where moons are practically taken out of the womb to be born, if that's going to happen, then I think such unity will probably crumble at the first challenge. It has to be a unity based upon something stronger than just the aspirations of certain countries to leadership of the Ummah. Further and beyond that, Shar'an, as far as the Sharia is concerned, there is no one specific center that should serve as the central point for moon sighting. Because the moon is not born and does not become visible always over one particular location in the world. It is possible that if we all decide to go with one particular location, it is possible to think of a situation where a moon gets born and a moon gets seen in, let's say, somewhere like Malaysia, Indonesia, and just because Makkah hasn't seen it yet, therefore the rest of the world will not accept it. So tying it down to one particular location is not devoid of problems either. So there's the first problem, and that is the problem of the Caesarean moon births, politically influenced moon births. And then there's the problem of the tying down to one particular location. Over and above these two particular problems, I would want to add to that another angle. And that angle is that to strive for unity of moon sighting at a time when sectors of the ummah, members of the ummah, parts of this ummah are suffering as they are suffering in Burma, as they are suffering in Gaza, as they are suffering in so many different parts of the world, without any Muslim country raising a finger in support of that, I think it would be very much a farce. I think it would be very much farcical of the ummah to create unity on this particular issue when those much more important issues are still left behind. So if unity is going to be what's required, then it's going to be unity of a different sort, where this will just be one particular subdivision of the greater unity. One subdivision of the greater unity. But to just achieve this particular unity at a time such as this and leave everything else aside, I think there is a problem there with, what shall I call it, the sequence of what's more important.
An issue, Muata Sahab, that I would like you to respond on is that some of these pamphlets that have come out have claimed that the acceptance of the moon sighting for Eid al-Fitr is contrary to the rules of the Shafi'i fiqh. And if my memory serves me correctly, the argument goes along the lines of something to the effect that the Shawafi are only, only allowed to accept moon sighting within the distance that is normally referred to as the Masafat al-Qasr. Is that an authentic Shafi viewpoint, and is that what normally ulama would say the mufta bihi, or the prevalent Shafi'i viewpoint?
On that particular score, unfortunately, whoever those particular parties are who are going to consult the Shafi'i books, first, one thing must be understood. To consult any particular source, one needs to be conversant with the structure of those particular works, the type of methodology and terminology that's employed in those particular sources, before one simply goes and cull a view from there and say this is a Shafi'i madhab. In this particular regard, as far as the Shafi'i madhab is concerned, it does believe that a moon sighting seen at one particular location will not be internationalized. There is a secondary view, a non-preferred view in the madhab that speaks about internationalization, but the carried view of the madhab is that we will not internationalize. A sighting of a particular location will be valid for that location. Beyond that location, it can be taken somewhere else. It's transferable, but the limits to which it's going to be transferable, there are three different views on that. One speaks about regional unity, such as, for example, Southern Africa, such as the entire Iraq or Sham or something of that nature. That is not the preferred view. Another view speaks of Masafat al-Qasr, the distance of Qasr, which is 48 Hashimi miles, which equates to 80 kilometers in terms of our measurements of units of measurement, rather. So, that particular view is a view within the Shafi'i madhab. It is a view to which preference was given by Imam Abu al-Qasim al-Rafi'i. However, anyone conversant with the madhab would know that if Imam Rafi'i's preference differs with that of the later authority Imam Nawawi, then Nawawi's view takes preference over Imam Rafi'i's. This happens to be one of those cases where Rafi'i went for a view of Masafat al-Qasr. Imam Nawawi pointedly disagrees with him and says that it is not Masafat al-Qasr. It is not to be considered in light of the 80-kilometer rule or the 48 Hashimi miles rule, but it's to be considered in light of another principle called Ikhtilaf al-Matali'. Now, Ikhtilaf al-Matali', a similar view is echoed in the Hanafi madhab as well. Not necessarily the preferred view, but it happens to exist in the Hanafi madhab as well. Ikhtilaf al-Matali', to understand Ikhtilaf al-Matali', certain people have difficulty. And sometimes when they have that difficulty, they just fall back on something which is easy to understand. Understanding a linear difference of 80 kilometers happens to be easy, and therefore they say, okay, this is the rajih according to or the preferred view of the Shafi'i madhab. That is not the case. The preferred view of the Shafi'i madhab, as any reliable work of the madhab will indicate, is the idea of ikhtilaf al-matali'. Now, what is ikhtilaf al-matali'? When two places share the same matla', which means times of moonset and times of sunset, they happen to share the same. The closest thing that we can come to in modern astronomy that correlates to it is that of the day-night line. Now, the day-night line, any of those that have taken a flight will sometimes see on an international flight, they show a dark area, a shaded area, and a light area. This is where it's day and that's where it's night. That's the day-night line, which means that any particular place on that particular line, the sun sets at the same time in those particular places. So the Shafi'i madhab says that that when two places share the same matla in that particular way, in other words, they lie on the same line, it is not the line of longitude as some would imagine. It's not longitude, it's an oblique line that runs across longitude. So any place that lies on the same day-night line as the original location of sighting can accept the sighting from the location of sighting, even if they happen to be thousands of kilometers apart. Thousands of kilometers, it doesn't matter. So a place lying at a more easterly location than the place of sighting, they will not be able to follow it. But when you lie more westerly, this is another development of ikhtilaf al-matali. If you happen to lie in the same day-night line, then you can take from one another. If you happen to lie anywhere westwards of that particular day-night line, then any location there can accept it as well. In the classical fiqh works, they will speak about something like Egypt and Hijaz, Makkah and Medina. Makkah and Medina lie further to the east. If it is seen there, Egypt can accept it from them. Let's bring that to South Africa. Johannesburg lies on something like 28 degrees east of Greenwich, and Cape Town lies on 18 degrees east of Greenwich. 10 degrees of longitudinal difference between the two. And then when it is seen in Johannesburg, then Cape Town can most certainly follow it. So unfortunately, this view, which I have seen, by the way, in which both the questioner and the answerer assume, for whatever the purpose might be, that 48 miles, 48 Hashimi miles, 48 Shar'i miles is the distance beyond which it cannot accept, sighting cannot be accepted. Both questioner and mufti assume that this is actually the Shafi'i madhab. Unfortunately, both of them have been misled in this particular regard, probably by the fact that they do not have a very, very close familiarity with the structure and the terminology of the Shafi'i madhab.
Allah for that explanation. It indeed clarifies many things. If you've just joined us, we're discussing moon sighting this evening. And in studio with us here in Sunning Hill, Johannesburg, we have Maulana Ibrahim Bam. He is the National Coordinator for the UXA Hilal Committee. And in studio in Cape Town, we have Maulana Taha Karan. Maulana is a Sharia expert, as you can see, and Maulana is also a member of the Darul Ifta of the Muslim Judicial Council. Maulana, you know, similar to what I've just asked Maulana Taha, many times we get two different calls in this regard. There is that one call saying, but why have we restricted it then to the parameters of South Africa? Why don't we have a SADC moon sighting? And on the other hand, you have those who are accusing you of trying to impose some sort of hegemony and trying to create this consensus across the different regions of SADC, even if the sighting doesn't meet the Sharia requirements.
Well, I'm only a coordinator. I don't make the decisions on behalf of the United Ulama Council of South Africa. But just for the record's sake, the United Ulama Council of South Africa have taken a view that sighting will only be accepted within the parameters of South Africa. I think for various reasons they have taken that. I think one of the reasons might also be that, you know, it doesn't make maybe sense to say that we are going to be making and trying to gain unity with countries across the border when ulama bodies within South Africa have not been able to agree upon acceptance of sighting beyond the borders. Now, if you are going to try to achieve unity with the SADC countries, and within your own structure, within your own country, you have ulama bodies who have taken the view that we will only accept that which is within our own country. So United Ulama Council maybe have taken a pragmatic view that they will only accept sightings which are within the boundaries of South Africa.
The second issue, Maulana, that of late these notices that were put up on masjid boards and distributed in the form of leaflets or handbills, purportedly from UXA, and then UXA coming out and saying this is not from us. What message do you have for our viewers in that regard? Obviously, there were those who were confused, although you did go on Muslim media platforms immediately and clarify, and there were statements taken out by UXA and other organizations. Is this part of, we're not going to go into the details of it, but you know, the broader, tussle, some would say, or claims over the UXA title? Or is there something deeper than this? Should the community be worried and concerned about this, or should they just brush it aside?
I can't speak with regard to the motivation of those people who have done it, other than to say that there is a structure that has been well known in the Muslim circles for 20-odd years, and now to impersonate that, to me, it is something that is not correct. I mean, it's something that if you, for example, have a counter view, then have the courage of your conviction to take your name and say that this is what I stand for and this is my view on the matter. Go and take your name and take the name of your organization and go and say, tell the people this is my view and I don't agree with the United Ulama Council of South Africa. Why do you piggyback on an organization that has been in existence for 20 years. I don't know the reason, I don't know the motivation, I don't want to comment further, but I think viewers will be able to make up their own minds with regard to those who impersonate someone else to be able to send a message which clearly is not the message of the United Ulama Council of South Africa. If you do have a counter view, stand on your own 2 feet, use your name, and go and tell people this is what we stand for. Don't impersonate or piggyback.
Well, before we go to the break, 2 issues that flow from that. I just want a quick comment from you on both of those issues. The first is that in some of those pamphlets that have come out, the claim has been made that there is some sort of a schism and some sort of a difference of opinion between the Maankykers and those who go out and sight the moon and the judicial body in Cape Town, and that the Maankykers were bullied, for the want of a better word, into accepting the sighting of the moon for Eid al-Fitr recently. Your comment on that, Moana?
I think no. No. I was in a meeting with the crescent observers, with the Maankykers after this particular, some of them did express a certain dissatisfaction. The president mentioned to me that he's 100% in accordance with the decision that had been taken, but some of his members had a bit of reservation. We subsequently had a meeting with them in which the cause, the reason for their dissent was probed, and it happened to have been the fact that they got information from the South African Astronomical Observatory, in terms of which they believe that it would have been impossible to see this moon. They believe that it would have been impossible to see this particular moon, and therefore they laid it in front of us and said, look, this is what the observatory is saying. I then put to them the question and asked them that one simple question. Your dissent, is it on account of Shari'i criteria, Shari'i matters? Do you have a Shari'i problem with it, or do you have an astronomical problem with it? They then said their problem is a Sharia problem. I said, well, if it's a Sharia problem, then we should be hearing that Allah says, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, we'll be looking for that kind of arguments. But if you're putting in front of us papers from the observatory, that indicates exactly where the problem lies. The South African Astronomical Observatory has a very conservative approach to sighting. There are a number of different criteria out there available for those who would want to have a look at them. We have the SAAO, the South African Astronomical Observatory criterion. They happen to be the narrower one. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the AUDA criterion. It's an astronomical program created by someone whom I know in Jordan, Muhammad Auda, member of the Jordanian Royal Astronomical Observatory Society, rather. And his is what I believe to be the more balanced one. In between, we have the Ilyas criterion, we have a number of other criteria. So when we come to a borderline case as the one that we had here in South Africa this time of the year, then different criteria will be describing it in different terms. The South African Observatory said that no, it will not be possible. Others have taken a more, what shall I say, a more accommodating view. Some said that it would be possible to see it perhaps with an optical aid, with a telescope or something of that particular nature. So it happened to have been just one of those cases in which to take one particular criterion and judge everything by that criterion happens to have been the wrong way to go about it. What also happened during that particular month was, that Ramadan, that night rather, was that we had what I would believe exceptionally clear skies. So when you have an exceptionally clear sky and you have a moon that was about 17 hours old, one should remember that our crescent observers in Cape Town, pride themselves with right. They rightfully pride themselves on having sighted a moon of 15 hours. They saw a moon of 15 hours, and that happens to be the standard by which they judge. Here we had a moon that was 2 hours older than that. I think that if they had taken that 15 hours moon to the observatory back in the years, the 60s or the 70s, when they had seen that, the observatory would have told them in no uncertain terms that it's impossible to have sighted. Yet they sighted it. They know that they sighted it. There would probably be those that remember the days when it was sighted as well. So when we speak about astronomical criteria, just a printout from a computer program is not sufficient for us as the the ulama to say that we're going to reject it on that basis and that basis alone. You know, when it is before the birth of the moon or in the early hours after the birth of the moon, then as I've indicated, there are some views of ulama that will say that we should reject it then. But this is a 17-hour moon, and these are clear skies, and this is with a degree above the horizon as confirmed by the observatory. Now to say that 20, 30 people, concurred and concocted a lie which coincides 100% with a degree above the horizon, it's simply not tenable at all. So we had that particular meeting with them, and I made it clear to them that the function, the work, and it is a work which we regard very highly and for which we are grateful, but the work of the crescent observers lies exactly in that particular word, observer. They are the observers of the moon. The decision is not to be taken by them. The decision will be taken according to Shari'i criteria, and the decision that was taken on that particular night was done completely according to Shari'i criteria. The interviewing of the witnesses, the relaying of that news to Sheikh Siraj Hendricks here in Cape Town, all of that indicates a degree of rigor, a degree of precision that I think we have every right to be proud of. So while there would have been, on account of the fact that this was a borderline case, there would have been those that feel dissatisfied, but we need to be clear about the separation of roles. We need to be clear about the separation of roles. The ulama, those qada-orientated organizations that will have to take a decision in light of our sharia, in light of what the fiqh demands and dictates, they will do it in light of those particular criteria. The observers will come with a testimony, and that's where their role ends. They will relay the testimony, set it in front of the qada authority. The qada authority will at times reject that testimony. At times it will accept the testimony. At times it will accept the testimony of others for other reasons. But for all of these, there are reasons that govern them. So I think it's understandable, to come back to the essential question, it is understandable that there was dissent. It was understandable that there was a bit of lack of clarity. But after the meeting that we had, for one, I think that it was made very, very clear where the roles separate from one another and how decisions are taken. Again, it was an informative and very educational exercise, and we hope that whatever dissent there had been at the time, that all of that dissent would have now been laid to rest, and that we would have taken something educational from it to go forward. One of the questions, for example, that had been asked at the time was that at times we get a moon sighting that comes a day or two, if not 3 days after the night of sighting. So when is the cut-off time? On the very night of sighting, the question was asked, when do we cut off? Isn't it only 40 minutes and then we cut off? No, for sighting there is a particular period of time. But for the process of collecting the evidence, that is something which doesn't take place within the first half an hour, 3/4 of an hour after the setting of the sun, as we have seen in this particular case. Now, it happens sometimes that the person sees the moon in a far outlying area, and structures are not yet in place for that news to be relayed quickly and efficiently, and for that particular shahada, that testimony, to be brought in front of the authority that could accept it and then make a decision. So I think what we can take from this year, the learning curve that we can extract from all of this here, is that we probably need to be better prepared, but prepared a bit better to put those structures in place. And I think this is especially true for the Gauteng region and the old Transvaal region at large, because towns tend to be very, very far apart from one another. The regions are far-flung. Here in Cape Town, we have the center here, Cape Town, and then we have at distances of 50, 70 kilometers, we have our satellite centers. Where I come from, Strand is about 50 kilometers from Cape Town, Paarl is about 50 out on the N7, on the N1 rather, Malmesbury is about 50, 60 out on the N7. So we are very, very close to one another, and the Muslim communities further afield, they are just fledgling communities that have started. Elsewhere, communities are far-flung, hundreds of kilometers apart. So we probably need those structures in place so that when the moon gets sighted in any of those particular regions, we take from this particular incident here the lesson that let's have those structures in place. Alhamdulillah, thus far, for this particular month, those structures might not have been ready, but they were very soon in operation. So I think to just avoid any kind of suspicion, any kind of speculation, if we have it in place already well before the time, and I do believe that in many regions that's already the case. If we have it in place, then there would be no time delay, and therefore very, very little chance. Minimize the chances for the forces, which I will call, I'll probably coin a term for them, the forces of dissent and disruption in this particular society. The force of dissent and disruption will minimize their chances of causing dissent and disrupting the operations of our society.
Jazakumullah for that. Unfortunately, we don't have much time left in the program, Rama, and we're going to try and take 1 or 2 calls before we conclude at 10 p.m. And due to technical reasons, unfortunately, we won't be able to have a link to the Cape Town studios while taking calls. So we would have to just conclude with yourself there. But Jazakumullah for taking out your time and coming out all the way from Paarl to Cape Town and contributing to the program this evening. It was most enlightening, most beneficial, and definitely most appreciated. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, viewers, we go for a quick break. The lines are now open, 011 086 7700. We're only going to be able to take maybe 2-3 calls at most. I'm going to ask you to be very brief, very concise, and to the point, because although we extended the program by half an hour, but there was quite a bit of ground we needed to cover and a lot of detail that needed to come through, which was important so that people could understand. And we don't have much time left. So after the break, we'll try and take a call or 2, inshallah, but please be to the point and very brief.
فبالجهاد بنى الإسلام قوته